Can you see us?
Here you
Oh,
are. Okay.
perfect.
Hello. What?
He's talking about the lighting.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
That's fine. Yeah.
It's a bit crackly, the sound, but is it okay for you?
I think it would be okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've touched later.
Um,
So we've just seen your movie. We've
yeah,
come from the cinema now.
it was so great. Everyone was excited, and we just felt in the audience like people
There's an
are.
actual audience?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh. So how does that work? It was in a theater of how many?
It was in a popular cinema in Sitges that it's called Prado, and everyone we have to keep the distance between everyone.
So
Yeah.
how many would be in the audience?
I would say like probably 100 people, but I don't know. I will have to check it.
Yeah.
Approximately?
Yeah, approximately,
Hmm.
more or
How many?
less.
Sorry?
800,
800.
more or less.
How many?
800, I think.
500?
100.
100.
Oh, 100.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
It is a small cinema.
Better than nothing.
Yeah.
Of course. Okay.
So, we hope we are not interrupting you, like your day or whatever.
Nope. I'm just finishing up the day's work.
Perfect.
That's right.
So, may we start, if you want, with some questions? Let's see. So, if we look you up on Google, we find you are an acclaimed filmmaker, photographer, and writer. So, what relation would you say these occupations have? And what is the one job you most identify with?
Okay. I kind of missed that. What was the first question? What?
So if you look up on Google, we'll find you that.
Speak up a little bit?
Yeah. So if we find you on Google,
Yeah, I heard that part. But what was the question?
yeah, we find that you are an acclaimed filmmaker and photographer and writer. And so we wanted to ask you, what is the relation that would you say that these occupations have you?
What relation is what?
What relation do these occupations, these jobs have between them? Like being a photographer, a filmmaker.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the relationship between them? And then what is the one job you would choose if you had to choose one, like you feel most identified?
Like an own
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, yeah, it's like photographer, filmmaker, writer, artist. For me, and in the past, I've been like a fanzine editor. For me, they all come from the same place. They all come from the same source of creativity. It's just different modes of expression. When I was in my 20s, I had a queer punk fanzine called JD's. And that taught me to be really multidisciplined. So I would do everything for the fanzine. I would take photos, I would do the layouts, the collages, which is more sort of artistic work, and design. And then I would also write manifestos or short stories for the fanzines. So it's like creative writing. I would pose as a model, in the magazine. And we also made Super 8 films as well. So they were all just doing a publication like that. You do a lot of different jobs. So they're all interrelated to me. But my true passion is cinema.
Okay.
So
That's right.
if I had to only do one, it would be cinema. But cinema involves a lot too. I mean, it involves writing, because I write my own films. It involves, I'm very involved in the process with my cinematographer of the mise en scène, and so design and and
That's right.
decoupage, and so. But cinema is my true love.
Okay.
Okay.
And speaking of cinema, we would like to ask you what do you think it makes you different from the rest of the people who make cinema professionally? And yeah, and what is your
What
you
makes me
think?
different?
Yeah,
from,
like
from the
what
other,
is your identity as an artist or your essence?
Oh, sure. Is that it?
yeah.
Okay. Well, I forgot to mention I'm also a pornographer. Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I make porn movies as well. So that kind of sets me apart because I'm a filmmaker who started out very underground. My films were very guerrilla, no budget films, and to this day my films are, can be more sexually explicit than most filmmakers who make mainstream films. So even though I've made a couple of films in the past 5 or 7 years that are more mainstream and they have a little bit of nudity in them, they're not sexually explicit. But I still make porn movies, which is unusual.
Yeah.
People don't usually allow filmmakers to make both mainstream films and porno films, but I've managed to do it.
Right.
Okay.
And related to these, I would like to ask you, like, what is your idea of porn movies, or what do you understand for those types of movies? You know, that genre and that sex scenes and everything. There's such polemic with that and discussion around that. So what would you say about that?
Well, my films quite often are highly referential. They reference a lot of other films. So with this film in particular, say Narcisse, I was referencing 70s, a lot of 70s cinema, American cinema. There's a film from 1967 called The Fox, directed by Mark Rydell, which is based on a D.H. Lawrence story about two lesbians living in the wood whose lives are interrupted by a man. And so I took that as kind of the basis of this story. And it's a beautiful film. It's very narrative.
Yeah.
But then I was also thinking of Quebec cinema, French-Canadian cinema from the early 70s. There was a director named Paul Allman who was married to the big star from Quebec, Geneviève Bujold. And they made 3 films together, Isabelle, Act of the Heart, and Journey. And his films were beautifully shot. They were slightly experimental, and they dealt with really taboo subjects like incest. And there's a scene in Act of the Heart where a priest has sex with a girl on the altar of the church, and then she goes to the park and sets herself on fire. So they were very intense art films. And you're right. There's like a polemic about sex. It's not just presenting sex for its own sake, but it's about using sex in a kind of more political way. And in Saint Narcisse, I'm using it as a comment on narcissism and on incest. So symbolically, you have incest between the mother, Beatrice, and her daughter, who's not her daughter, but symbolically she's her daughter.
Yeah, we've seen that.
It's her former lover's daughter, but becomes her lover. So, but she's still like, it's a symbolically incestuous relationship. And then in the church, you have the symbolic father, the demented priest, Father Andrew, and the boy, who's like his symbolic son. So these incest stories are paralleled along with the twincest. So it's a very complicated narrative, and it's kind of based on Freud's principle of family romance.
Right. Okay.
We've seen that, and I found it really interesting to talk, as you say. So, moving on to your last movie, I wanted to talk about Saint Narcisse. And then, for those who haven't seen the movie, how would you explain it to them? The whole thing about how it's going.
Well, I mean, the movie started out. The working title of the movie was Twin Sex.
Yeah,
So
you've said that.
I'm always interested, which is kind of a subgenre of porn. You know, it's quite popular, especially gay porn, to have twins having sex. Sometimes triplets. So, it would be twins, triplet sex. But, it got me thinking about why is incest taboo and what is the taboo about. And, you know, sex between identical twins is in a way the most socially acceptable form of incest.
Yeah.
Because people kind of can wrap their minds around the idea of being attracted sexually to someone who looks identical to you. And they also have a kind of identical twins are almost, you know, like, in some ways they can be almost like the same person. They have very strong psychic connection. So, so the idea of them having sex doesn't seem that unusual. But of course, incest taboos exist for a reason. I mean, because in order for the social contract to work, for families to work, you can't have everyone fucking everyone, you know. And it's also a prohibition against, you know, because of inbreeding and things like that. So, but when two twins are separated at birth, or for example, when Beatrice is reunited with Irene, they haven't been raised together, so they don't have that kind of family, that idea of family where sex doesn't occur to you, you know. But when you're not raised with someone, there's an actual phenomenon where, for example, close family members who weren't raised together and then meet later in life sometimes end up having incestuous relationships because they weren't raised in the same house. So that taboo has never been established. So all that is very interesting, you know, sociologically to me. But also, it's kind of just a metaphor for taboo in general and what makes certain sexual acts acceptable and others that are not, you know. And also the idea of the priest sexually exploiting the boy. You know, the boy doesn't know any other reality, so to him it's kind of normal. It's only when his brother comes to save him that he sees it from objectively and understands that what the priest has done is unacceptable.
Okay. Also, this has some relationship with polyamorous relationships, because we just remember the last scene of your movie now, because that's where we come from, and you really see this idea of just not following the rules and maybe what society tells us what's right and wrong to do or to consider in relationships and sex and stuff. So I think it has to do with what you said too. Okay. So moving on to like cinema stuff, like the genre and stuff, what does cinema mean to you and what do you intend to do with cinema when you do it?
Well, I don't know, from a very, very young age, I was fixated on cinema and fascinated by it. My parents loved movies, so they took us to movies every weekend. And, there's something about I'm so glad some people got to see it on the big screen, because for me it's partly about the spectacle of it. The image projected on the big screen is it's like the screen is like the unconscious or something. The audience projects so much of their own, and have a lot of identification with what's going on the screen. And because it's so large, it's like a kind of a spectacle that draws you in. So that's partly what really attracts me to cinema. But beyond that, also just the fact that it's a hugely challenging art form, because it's so expensive and it's so collaborative and all those things. So, it's just very challenging for me. I never thought as a kid, or even when I was in university, that I could become a filmmaker, because it seemed so technically difficult and so expensive. And so I just started making cheap Super 8 films and documenting me and my friends, and then it just very gradually, very slowly, I started making more ambitious films, and I never thought I'd be where I am now, making films on the scale that I'm making.
Right, because did you study something related to movies or anything at all? Did you do some?
Yeah, in university I studied. I started in film production, but I dropped out because I didn't think I could make films. So I switched to film theory, and I got a master's degree in film and social and political thought.
Oh, okay, super cool. So now, to finish up, we also wanted to know, how are you personally living this pandemic situation, and how has it affected your personal and professional life?
Yeah, that's an interesting. Okay. Did you lose me?
We lost your image.
Okay, wait. I'll get you back. There you go.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 second. I'm taking a picture. Why isn't it working?
If you want, we can take
I'll
it.
get it.
Yeah, we can do that for you.
No, I can do it.
Okay.
See, I'm not very technical, unfortunately. There, I got it.
Okay.
Pandemic. Well, it was very. We were interrupted. Fortunately, the film was all shot. Okay. Fortunately, the film was all shot, and so we only got interrupted in post-production. And so I had to wait. We had to pause for a couple of months, and then I came back when we could and finished the film in the summer. And then we kind of just made it in time for the Venice Film Festival. So I have a long history with the Venice Film Festival, and that's where we premiered it. And we were really lucky because the pandemic, it was sort of a lull in early September where the numbers were really low in both Canada and northern Italy. So we were able to fly to Venice. We got tested before we left, and we got tested when we landed in Italy, and we wore masks and everything. But we actually got to premiere it in a big cinema with 300 or 400 people with distancing, and I got to the Canadian ambassador to Italy came from Rome for our premiere. So we got a bit of the glamour of the old style of film festivals,
Yeah.
And which was great for my lead actor, Felix Antoine, because he's more of a TV star in Quebec, but he's never been in a feature film, and so it was his first big glamorous moment at an international film festival.
Right.
But in terms of my career, so I fortunately, have that film premiering now at festivals, and I'm doing a lot of press for it and introductions via Skype and Zoom. And I'm also working on a number of scripts that were already in development. so I'm in a writing phase. So, which is a good thing to do during isolation or quarantine or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and also I've been working on 2 photography books.
Mm.
So, which is also based on material that I've already shot.
Okay.
So, one's coming out in November. It's called The Death Book, and another one will be called Fixations, and it's coming out maybe early next year. And it's a big art book compilation of all my images from my photography and films. And so I'm busy, So that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's good.
And hopefully, if all goes well, we'll be shooting the next film in Mexico.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's called Santo Cabron. Shooting it next, I think maybe probably towards the end of next year, if everything's more back to normal.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
great. And one last thing, like, is this your first experience here in Sitges, or you have been here before?
Oh, so many times.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I think I've been 3 times maybe. I was there, I think, with my film Otto, and then I think The Raspberry Rite, and
Okay.
maybe Gerontophilia. And then I wanted to go 2-3 years ago when my film The Misandrists played, because it was the anniversary of the festival. But because of my schedule, I just couldn't make it.
So
But,
you've
I love
never
Sitges.
come. You've never come
I love,
here.
Angel and everyone at the festival has always been so great to me. They've supported my work from the beginning. So yeah, it's one of my favorite film festivals.
Great.
That's right. Okay.
Okay, so I think that's all. No?
Yeah.
Okay. We are really grateful for your time and everything.
We've really enjoyed your film.
Yeah, we did. We did.
Great.
Yeah.
Did people laugh?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
And
Yeah.
actually, like, I commented to him, like, I didn't expect this kind of film because it was like a mix of comedy and also some scary parts,
Yeah.
right?
Not really scary.
Not scary, but
Not
you
really
know,
scary.
creepy or,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And I wasn't expecting that at all. So it's great always when you find something you didn't expect. It's always a great experience. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And hope we will see you sometime in
Say hi
Sitges.
to everybody for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Bye.
Okay.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Bruce.
Thanks.
Thank you.